Well, I'd like to welcome Helen Cameron here to the little studio that we have in Swansea. Welcome, croeso.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Now then, your name is Helen Cameron, but tell me what your title is.
So my title is the Revd Canon Helen Cameron, and that sounds a bit posh, but I'm an ordained Methodist minister, so that's where the Reverend comes from. The Canon is an honorary title. I'm an ecumenical canon at Peterborough Cathedral, which is in the patch where I work. And the first day I arrived, the Bishop of Peterborough came to see me, old friend, and said, Helen, I've made you an ecumenical canon of the cathedral and given you the authority to preach and teach in any parish church in the diocese. And I hadn't done anything to deserve it. It was just a very generous gift. So I like to use the title because I think it's a demonstration of generosity.
Excellent. I think it sounds so impressive as a Reverend Canon. Wonderful. So we know your name. So where are you from?
Well, I'm a Yorkshire lass. I was born in North Yorkshire and raised there. I had a short spell in Edinburgh when I trained to be a physiotherapist. I then worked in York as a physiotherapist and then candidated for ministry. So went to Birmingham at that point to train. And actually then stayed in the West Midlands for quite a long time, either serving as a minister or for a long chunk of time, almost 20 years, training ministers at the college where I trained. I'm now chair, like an area bishop, of two districts in Methodism. One is Northampton and one is Nottingham and Derby. So that means I look after Methodism between Sheffield and Gerrard's Cross.
That's a whole load of country, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
The chunk of the M1. So a big chunk of the Midlands in England.
Yeah. So I'm just going to row back a bit there. Yeah. You said that you trained as a therapist.
Yes.
What was the pivot that made you change tack?
That's a brilliant question. It was not easy to change tack because I had felt, as a practicing Christian, that my physiotherapy training was vocational. You know, it felt important to me to be assisting people in their recovery. And then, as now, the NHS felt like a place of great challenge and a lack of resources. So to leave it and train for ordained ministry was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I was a specialist in the care of stroke patients, and it was really hard to stop doing that work and train as an ordained minister. I don't regret it. The trainings, as it were, had things in common about being attentive to people and noticing things and being person-centred and trying to seek a transformation of people's lives. So I think I would like to say, rather than leaving one behind, I built on the first piece of work that I did when I became a minister. And the one funny element of that is when you're a student physiotherapist, you're always used to turning walking sticks upside down and checking that the rubber on the bottom of the walking stick is really quite thick still so that nobody's going to slip or slide.
Okay.
And it took me a very long time to stop as a minister when I was visiting people or encountering people to take their walking stick off them, turn it upside down and check that there was enough rubber on the bottom of the stick.
Well, I just think that's extra ministry, surely.
It was. I have now trained myself not to do it, but my hand occasionally still goes out to check the rubber ferrule on the bottom of the walking stick.
That's one of my favourite words, by the way.
Yes.
The ferrule. Yes, absolutely. Yes. The umbrella and absolutely. Yeah. So your present role, tell me a little about that.
Yeah, so I'm doing two main things. I'm a chair of district, which is like being a kind of area overseer or bishop for an area of Methodism. And I do that now in two districts of Methodism because we're doing a bit of reorganisation. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm responsible for a couple of hundred ministers, the churches they look after, the church members who attend, and responsible for strategy and vision and providing some clarity about what we should be doing and what our focus is. And I just love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most exciting, different things I do. Now, that's the day job. In addition to that, Methodism asked me to serve as moderator of the Free Churches Group group. And I started that on the 1st of April this year. And that's the reason why I'm here today, is because I'm moderator of the Free Churches group, which is an extraordinary gathering of more than 25, 26 churches who are not part of the establishment, so not the Church of England, not the Roman Catholic Church, everything from Methodist, URC, Baptist, Salvation Army, through to some much smaller churches, but equally vibrant churches. So it is a very interesting area of work to be caught up in. Yeah,
you're talking about it being interesting and varied.
Yeah.
How do you see the landscape at the moment, 21st century? We're in a challenging time.
We're in a challenging time. We were in a challenging time before COVID hit. One of the interesting things about COVID is that it's hit everyone. It's hit every part of society. So we are a smaller, frailer, perhaps less attached church than we were before COVID. Some churches, I think, are still in recovery. People lost the patterns of attending worship in person because for a long time during lockdown they weren't allowed to. So they got out of the habit of attending, and they also rediscovered what it was like to spend time with friends and family at the weekends and not just be very busy about church things. So I think post-COVID, now that the lockdown is not in place anymore, people are rediscovering or discerning what they want church to look and feel like in terms of commitment. And so some people have revisited whether they want to do the jobs they were doing beforehand. Some people are now, because of Zoom, able to join worship online. And that for some people is a worry and an anxiety. For me, it isn't. I think what the pandemic did was make worship more accessible to those who've always struggled to physically attend a building because of anxiety, because of caring responsibilities, because of access, physical access. So it is an interesting time for the life of the church where people reassess what it is to belong, how to express it, what the life of faith looks like. And for me, I'm quite glad that some of them are liberated from what I would call being busy in the church building, because I actually think we need to be out of the church building. And therefore, COVID has, I think, allowed a reassessment of what it is to be church.
So opportunities in front of us, very definitely. Yeah. Can you foresee how that might manifest itself? Or how you hope it will manifest itself?
Well, I think people being liberated from too much busyness in the life of the building and the church. So a lighter relationship with the building, with plant, with certain ways of doing things, to say that you can actually belong to church and not be physically present every week, and that not to be offensive or demonstrate a lack of commitment. I think the issue about access is fundamentally important. I have one child who's neurodiverse. I know other people who've got physical limitations. And I can remember my mother telling me the story. I'm one of 5 children, telling me the story of her minister visiting her, asking why she wasn't in church on one particular Sunday. And 3 of the children were down with croup or something, and she was nursing her elderly father. And the minister still wanted to know why she wasn't in worship. Yeah. Now, now, if that happened now, you'd sit down with your slippers on at the end of the day and you'd catch up on that day's worship because it was available online.
Yeah.
Whereas then, she was seen to be in absentia.
And noted.
And that it was a mark, she felt as though it was a mark against her.
Yeah.
So I think the issues of access about church and worship, I think in terms of ability, disability, and how we do things, I think is a wake-up call for the church.
Yeah. You talked about being neurodiverse and neurodiversity. I have a daughter who is also neurodiverse, and the church has been such a welcoming place for her, and they're just so accepting of her as the person she is, and the gifts she can obviously bring to just being there. Yes. It's such a joyful experience for her.
Yes, that's been my daughter's experience too, and I would say she is my own daughter who copes with neurodiversity, is very high achieving, as many neurodiverse people are. She sings, she's very musical, and the church has found a place for her and cherishes her and nurtures her and has allowed her to grow. Now, I'm interested because the church for many people at times in the past has been the exact opposite. It's been oppressive for some people. It's not been a place of liberation. It's not been a place of flourishing. And I do think that the radical inclusion that is possible in the life of the church is what keeps me going and keeps me in the church, that it is still, when you gather round a table for Holy Communion, the diverse group of people who gather for that meal would never be present at a dinner party in somebody's house, for example, from all backgrounds and all personalities and all manifestations of what it is to be human can call themselves a church.
Yeah. For me, it's that multi-generational thing that's super important.
Yeah.
Not having any grandparents for my children at the moment. They have a chapel full of grandparents, which is wonderful.
They do. And it is, in that sense, the richest demonstration, I think, that family is not just about biology. It's actually about providing a space for people to know they're loved. And when it happens like that, it is utterly glorious. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You told me earlier that part of your work has been to come and sort things out. I get the impression that you're somebody who likes to see what you've got and then to make the best and the most positive of everything. Is that right? Have I got you right?
Yes, and that's remarkable because we have only just met, but I think there's all kinds of understandings and commonalities between us. So, yes, I think that I'm a passionate believer in doing what you can rather than being anxious about what you can't. And as you do it, to enjoy it and find the joy in it. And I have been deployed by the church on a number of occasions to sort things out, but to sort things out in a way that re-establishes right ways of doing things, that allows people to thrive, that actually says this, this and this are not acceptable, but this, and this will bring joy and freedom and goodness to be established. And I'm not one for letting things lie if it's causing harm to people. So I have for a long time done a lot of work around safeguarding in the life of the church. And one of my previous roles when I was Assistant Secretary of the Conference for Methodism was to implement our past cases review. And unacceptable behaviour is unacceptable behaviour. Yeah. And so, yes, I have done quite a bit of that in my time.
You said that we have things in common. I'm just going to close this short interview with the fact that we both love pockets.
We do.
You knew that was coming, I could tell. But pockets are integral to all human beings, I think. Especially in the Western world, anyway.
Yes.
Women and men. Women and men
need pockets.
Absolutely. Tell me about your experience of clerical wear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm now in my early 60s. I was in my 20s when I was ordained. And at that point, any clerical shirts were made for men and you just had to adjust them and cope with the fact the buttons were the wrong way around and all of that. And so I commissioned my first cassock from two women who'd set up a clerical clothing company who were just making for men at that point. Women were not being ordained in the Church of England or the Church in Wales at this point. And I asked for two deep pockets and shoulder pads and got them. And I've got a thing about pockets because I've often spoken to my daughters to say pockets are really useful because it keeps your hands free. And actually that might keep you safe at various points. It's like never wear a pair of high heels that you can't run in, because if you need to run away, you need to be able to run away. Yeah. So I am passionate about pockets.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they go with your life. You're a busy woman, like you say. You need your hands. You need your hands to be working, to be out there in the world. Yeah. Well, power to your pockets.
Thank you
Helen.
very much.
Thank you so
much. And to yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.